What do you think this means to the community?
Well, I'm, just being here last year and seeing the enthusiasm and what they're doing to keep this history alive is something that I'm really proud to be a part of. Something that I've always been a fan of, and being able to meet some of the greats like Buck O'Neil and going back to even guys that maybe went through there like Frank Robinson and Monty Irvin. I met him, and so just feeling like you're a part of that history is pretty cool, and I just think that what the people here at Somerset are doing in the Caliber family is tremendous, because history is so important to us, and in a time when we're trying to get rid of history in some way. So if you're a baseball fan, then you should know Black history and Negro League history, because these guys were, to me, the real early pioneers of the game, who played purely for the love of the game, and because they love playing the game. So to me, it's just a pleasure being here. I had a chance today to rub elbows with Mr. Biddle and Corbin, and I was like a kid in a candy store. I mean, it was just the coolest thing to be able to pick their brain. For me, just them to know who I am. I mean, I walk up to them like I'm introducing myself, and they look at me like, I know who you are, and I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I'm not worthy even being in your presence. So, to me, it's a cool thing to experience, and I just think that what they're doing here, continue to do this, is tremendous, because again, it's baseball, it's America, and this is what the kids who are growing up should understand about the history of the game.
Yeah, I mean, what sort of impact did the history of the Negro Leagues have on you when you were young?
Well, I was touched, when I say by royalty, when I came up with the Pirates. People forget I signed out of high school with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Most people know me as being with the Yankees. But I had a young guy that, he was a gentleman named Gene Baker, who played in the Negro Leagues. And at the time that he was teaching me how to turn a double play, I had no idea who he was until later on, where someone said, after I got into the history of it, I had a beautiful library in my home of Negro League history, and I started reading up about these guys. I'm going, I cannot believe Gene Baker was one of my first infield coaches, and I didn't know it at the time. It was pretty cool. So again, I just feel really blessed to be around this and being talked about in that lineage in some way, because I feel like it's part of a legacy, if you will, and I'm just real proud of just the people that come before me and who I get a chance to meet, who are still with us. And those gentlemen, they were sharp. We were telling stories, and they were talking about stuff that I had questions about, and they were right on it, man. I loved it.
It feels like there's a younger generation of players that are coming up now who maybe aren't as aware of the Negro Leagues and the history there as they should be, to be able to kind of lead the charge and maybe educating that younger group. How important is that to you?
Yeah, very, very important. I mean, and for all players, not just Black players or African American players, it's especially in general. And a lot of the players in general, they want to know. I sense when I talk to them about that stuff, they're really curious about it. And they really want to know about certain guys and how it was back in the day. I mean, these guys sometimes play triple headers or whatever, and you say that to a player today, and they'll go, what? Triple header? These guys must have really loved the game. It's crazy. So yeah, I think that if you love the game, then you love everything about it, I think. And I think that most players, they can Google things if they want, but to be able to talk about it and express it, people, not that I was there, but I know a lot about it, so I can pass it on in real time. Like, hey, I met these guys. These guys told me stories. They validated a lot of things that I thought about and heard about. So I love sharing that. And again, I just hope that the players that are on both benches here will be paying attention to the board and pay attention to what's going on tonight, because it's inspirational, but also it teaches you about the love of the game and how these guys sacrifice a lot just to play this great game of baseball. So it puts things in perspective, I think.
Do you think that African American players now understand kind of the path that was laid out for them back then, kind of the trailblazing path that was laid out by those guys now?
I think they do. I talked to Jazz Chisholm about it, and a lot of the other players that I talk about. I think they do. They might not have dug deep into it, but I think they understand that they're riding on the shoulders, or being lifted on the shoulders of these great players. I think they understand that, but I think it needs to be talked about more. I think it needs to be, have these type of events and nights more often or whatever, so it can be in the mindset. You don't just give it a little bit of lip service and then move on. I think what they're doing here at Somerset is tremendous. I think they do it around the league at times, but they do it better than anyone I've seen. And I think that the people that come through this, I think they lead with a different type of viewpoint and awakening.
when you go in and you do some of the research to find players, maybe players who a lot of people haven't heard of, what kind of work do you put in as far as trying to find guys and using your connections in the game to find guys that maybe have become obscure in some ways over the years in the leagues?
Yeah,
In the league, in the Negro leagues, and try and bring them to the forefront so people can learn and understand who they were and what they accomplished.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You have to talk about it. You have to bring it up. You have to share those stories or whatever. I mean, just even recently, a guy like Buck O'Neil, who passed away, obviously, but he's everyone knew Buck. I mean, you go to Kansas City, you play the Royals. He was always being an ambassador in the game. So that infectious smile, the way he made everyone feel, like they were part of the game. And just what he gave back the players know that, but they need to know more about that, I think, and not just when they go to Kansas City, which is a great thing at the museum. But I just think that just like with the modern day players who came up in maybe in the 60s or 70s, who set the tone through the Players Association and all that, these guys reap the benefits of those guys who really came out and laid the foundation. So that's also important for them to know, is that the fact that you live in these great lives and playing a great game, there are people that did the hard work before to get to this point. So more than anything, acknowledge that, understand that, and understand that it wasn't easy for everybody. It's easier today, but those guys really sacrificed. Going back to Kurt Flood, Andy Messersmith, those are guys that really changed the Players Association. And with this collective bargaining agreement coming up in a couple of years, they better do some research and find out that you gotta stick together.
Elston Howard have any stories when he was a coach with the Yankees? He played with Buck O'Neil, I think.
Not really. Ellie, I love Ellie. He was the best. I didn't really know he played for the Black Yankees. I didn't know that. Again, so even for me, it wasn't until later on in my career that I started to really delve into the history and read books and stuff like that. But Ellie was kind of quiet. We talked mostly just Yankee baseball. But I knew that he was a great player, and I knew he was one of the first Black Americans to integrate the major leagues or whatever. I mean, he was a great player, but he was one of those guys who in some weird kind of way was the demise of the league, because they started pulling these guys from the Negro leagues. When Jackie broke the color barrier. I mean, the Negro leagues were starting to really flourish as a business, and they were drawing unbelievable crowds. But when they started taking away from the Negro leagues, it really just kind of almost killed it, in a weird kind of irony or whatever. It was great that those guys like Larry Doby and Monty Irving and those guys, Ernie Banks, got a chance to play. But they're guys that I don't even know that I watched that played in the Negro Leagues, and I found out later on that's where they started, and Elston was one of those guys. Elston was a mentor to me. I wished that I knew that back then, because I would have picked his brain enough to get away from me like a little gnat on his shoulder. But I would have loved to have shared those stories and be able to pass it on to my children.
Excellent.
All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Mr. Middle, can you tell us a little bit about that day you were on the mound? What were you throwing? What do you remember from that legendary game? That game you had nicknamed the man who beat Satchel Paige.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is my second professional baseball game. 15-18 Wisconsin against the legendary pitcher named Earl Lefty McGinnis. He was one of the very few pitchers that ever beat Leroy Satchel Paige. So I won the game. After the game, the nickname means the man who beat the man who beat the man. Satchel was known as the man.
Well done. Well done. Well, Satchel Paige was elected into the Hall of Fame in 1971. How do you feel about the Hall of Fame now starting to recognize the Negro League in the official record books?
I feel that this is something that still happened years ago. I played with and against some of the greatest baseball players that ever played the game.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Next up, Mr. James Albin. Now, we all know the New York Yankees draw the largest crowd in the American League, but can you tell us what the atmosphere was like, what the fans were like when you were playing for the New York Black Yankees?
They were all in the hall. 100%. Back in the day when the Yankees didn't make baseball games, they came to see a great game and have fun doing it. And the Negro League, with the kind of plays, or the kind of things we had, during the game was very popular among our city. In fact, they stood up most of the game, watching the game and really good. And that's what the Negro League baseball game is.
Yes, sir, and it's a big. Now, the Negro League wasn't a developmental league, it wasn't a minor league for the New York Yankees. Can you tell us about the competition level, the talent of the players in the Negro League?
Yes, I'm sure that during this time span that we played in the Negro League, it was an enjoyment for the kids as well. You know, there was a game that everybody, most of the time, stood up and cheered for the whole game. We did things in the Negro League like stealing home, double steals, all kinds of things that they wasn't accustomed to.
And last but certainly not least, Mr. Willie Randolph. Willie, you know representation matters. You were the guy coming out of New York being a young black player, and coach, can you tell us what that was like playing for the New York Yankees?
Well, I had the honor of when I became a rookie with the Yankees of meeting the great Nelson Howard. And at the time, I didn't know that he was the great for the Black Yankees. So we didn't talk a lot about the Negro League, but I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and I grew up honoring and really understanding through my aunts and uncles about Jackie Robinson. I lived, not too far from there. I wish I was born here a little earlier because I could snuck into the ballpark and kind of quote me together. But no, I learned a lot about that from my family. And so for me to be here today with these great gentlemen, pioneers of the game, guys who really play the game for the love of it. So for all the young players and all the people that know history and love history, really tap into what these gentlemen have done over the years and inspired me and many others, all types of people to get the most out of their ability.
And can you speak about the Somerset Patriots? This is the third year that the Somerset Patriots will be honoring the Negro League playing as the New York Black Yankees, and you are the main face and ambassador. Speak about that.
I'm very proud of that. You guys always show up and come out to this event. The California family's done a tremendous job going back to Steve, who I miss, who's the dad. And for me to be a part of this and be a part of history and be able to come out every year and just keep the energy going and just keep the whole idea of what baseball is about going back to the day where a lot of these kids didn't know about it. So for all the players in the dugout on both sides, look at your history, really dig deep into what these guys are doing, because I wish I could have played you today because you guys are real ball players.